So I was just thinking about something the other day about growing up as a kid, and you've heard those things of my mom or dad always told me this, and this is what they instilled in me. And I think one of the things, there's a couple things, but one of the things that I really wish that they would have instilled in me especially as I approached voting age, is the importance of voting. And the fact that your vote does matter, because I know that my parents are habitual voters. And so I really, really wish they would have taught me that, because I really didn't get that information in school. The one thing I am thankful they didn't do, though, was instill any kind of political views or stance. So I'm thankful for that. I was able to kind of figure that out on my own. It took me a while. And it did. It took me quite a few years to figure out the importance of voting, the importance of elections, the importance of our government, and the fact that we do have a voice behind the vote. So it does. Yeah, I was one of those people that I didn't believe that our voice mattered and our voice counted until I really decided to look into it more, dig deeper, and do some research. And sure enough, it's true. We the people really, really, really do matter. And so, of course, I asked that question about me being a parent. My son is 20, so he's obviously of voter age. So that question of what do I want to instill in my son? What do I want him to say, 10 years, 20 years, 40 years from now, to his friends or the people he associates with? And, my mom always told me, and my mom instilled in me, this. And that would be to vote. That would be the importance of voting, and not ignoring your voice, your own voice, when it comes to how this country is run. Because I think a lot of Americans still have that idea that their vote doesn't count and that it doesn't influence much. And in looking, for instance, in our state, Washington State, we've been doing mail-in voting for decades. It works. We have out of all the states, there's 5 states that have been doing mail-in voting for decades, and there's overall a 0.0005% chance of voter fraud. So it's really small. But I looked at the statistics, and it just, looking at this last election, a round of elections, so we had about a 76% voter turnout out of all of the registered voters in our state for the 2016 general election, okay? After that, it decreases. So when we have state elections and state primaries and stuff, it just plummets. And so it's usually below 50% voter turnout. This last year, so 2020, for the primary and for the presidential primary and for the state elections, it was around 50% voter turnout. Much better than we have seen in the past. So that is progress, and thank you for voting. But what about these other 50%? I'm sure there's plenty of reasons why, but I know that there are plenty of registered voters out there that are not voting in these smaller elections, and they have huge influence on what we get as far as the presidential candidates on the ballot, and as well as who we elect in our city and county and state and Congress even. And there are still plenty of people too that are just not registering to vote, and it's just such a waste and such a shame that that's still occurring. But I think we're starting to wake up. We're starting to realize the importance of the voting, and that we do have a voice, and that we need to be using our voice with the voting. Protests are great, organizations are great, programs are great, but if we're not voting, then we're not going to be able to get far. So that is definitely what I would want my son to take away, is that, really voting does matter, and you need to vote with a conscience, and vote wisely. Do your research when you're voting too. It is work. It takes effort to understand who you're voting for and what you're voting on. And there's so many resources out there to help you in layman's terms even. To be able to research this information and understand it, or research these candidates and understand where they're coming from, and their policies and their background and their track record and their, you know, it has to come down to character as well, is very important. And so that is definitely a message that I want to be able to provide for my son, and hopefully like with his kids, or even just the people around him he can influence, to make sure that they're voting, and they're voting with conscience, and they're voting smart. So I hope that parents will start to see this and recognize it, and actually utilize this as a learning tool for their children, and to pass it on for generations. And hopefully it would be nice to be able to see in my lifetime a huge, drastic lift in how many people are voting. So I think we're getting there. We are getting there. There are plenty of organizations out there that are making that effort to encourage people to vote. But we still need to be talking about it like crazy. We still need to be informing people. We still need to be asking our friends and family if they're voting, and if not, like encourage them to vote. So important. So that is my message. That is one thing, again, I wish my parents would have done. Our school system should probably do it too, but I think more than ever it needs to come from our parents and the people who raise us. And that's the takeaway. That's what I want my son to take with him, and you know, be that one message that his mom has passed on to him.